Hey, welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about things we all love. Our guest today is Brian Colin, who has been on before. I think you were on for the first Vast Grimm Kickstarter.
I've
Yeah,
been
I
on
think
twice,
so.
I think, maybe.
Yes, and then you guys all know my co-host Andrew Sides. Sorry, Andrew, if I had to introduce you first, but yeah, I think I was looking at the chat because I went to add you to a group, and Discord's like, oh, you guys are already in a chat together. And the
Yep.
last one was when you were going to do another Kickstarter that we're not going to talk about it, but it got shut down for a second there until you brought it
Gotcha.
back up. So I was just like, oh yeah, so you've been on a couple times. Let's just kick it off and talk about Vast Grimm, these expansions you're putting out now, and congrats, I think you
Thanks.
funded day one.
Yeah, funded day one. We're closing it out Friday night,
Mm-hmm.
8 o'clock Central Friday night. So
You,
we
Hmm.
still
did
have a
you,
couple days left to go.
and you also hit like the Kickstarters we love project list day one, I believe,
Yes,
right?
we had I discovered that we were recognized as a project we loved before we actually launched because
Oh
I'd gone and
yes,
seen
that's
it that
cool.
it had already been tagged that when searching. But since you can go ahead and have a preload page for people to go and sign up and follow ahead of time,
Hmm.
we had already gotten that, which is the first time Infinite Black's gotten one, and the first time I've ever been on a project that had project we love. So that's cool. It's nice knowing that the folks that are at Kickstarter, especially in the game department, are digging what we're putting out. So
So really quick, I'm
Yeah.
noticing. Are we live? I can't tell.
I saw
Well, you
that
check.
Tawny said hey on the chat, but I don't know if
I'm testing the scheduler for the first time. Oh yeah, I see her commenting.
yeah, we're live.
Okay, I guess my
all
stream
right.
is just catching up to itself then. The guy actually hosting it is not live. All right, cool. If you guys can see it, then I ain't gonna
You're
stress it.
totally dead.
Well, it tells me the stream is live. I just don't see it. Why don't I?
Yes.
Whatever. Okay, so let's just move
Yeah.
forward.
So
Um.
yeah, it funded on day one. It's been going
Yeah, we're
great.
live.
We've got a lot of people from the
Okay,
very
I guess my.
first campaign that we ran on GameFound. Some people that are already playing Vast Grimm, which is a rules light sci-fi RPG that uses the Morkborg engine. And this is the first expansion from that. So we have 3 new books. We've got a crazy patch program, mission patches, and have just been knocking down all sorts of stretch goals, including like guest written adventures by other people in the RPG industry and extra content, new like digital tools for making it extra easy for people to run and play games. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of good stuff.
I mean, it was kind of cool. I did PAX Unplugged with Brian, and I worked his booth. I also have some art in the first book. That's why I'm wearing this hat.
That's right.
Gotta plug it. But it was cool to see like how how many people really are like into. In my head, I was like, okay, people like Mark Borg, so here's this whole fan base for that, right? Like, you expect them to lean in that direction of that type of game set. But then Brian's made this whole game set. Your fan base is like, you got a lot of fans.
It's cool, and like people like that was the first convention that we actually had like books to sell at. We
Yes.
had pre-orders at Gen Con, but this was the first one where like we had things that people could take with them, and like people dug it. They saw it, they dug the aesthetic, they like that how everything kind of has the vibe that it has, and people were excited to try it. On top of people that had already backed the original GameFound campaign and were already playing, and those people that
Mm.
were already fans are already there's another Kickstarter going on right now, which is the first third-party adventure that somebody else created in Vast Grimm that they're crowdfunding. That there's been a couple other. There's been one other printed adventure, and then some others that people have released on itch. But this is the first one that's crowdfunding. That's a third-party adventure, which is pretty awesome. Knowing that
Oh,
because of our license, anybody can take Vast Grimm and do whatever they want with it. As long as there's got to be a copyright line, use the Vast Grimm Horde logo, and that's pretty much it. And so she's got a Kickstarter that funded on day one and is doing great for her very first like printed zine.
That's awesome.
nice.
Yeah,
You guys keep talking. I am just adjusting our link because apparently the wait to go live link just never went live. So what we're seeing is my regular push for some reason.
Gotcha.
So one question I had after I was looking over the Kickstarter and stuff was, what is the Morkborg engine? I don't know if
So
you mentioned that before.
no, probably not. So Morkborg is a rules light, very metal OSR style RPG. It's if you're familiar with any RPGs, it's a D20 base, but it's just the writing style is it's meant to be evocative. It's not the rules are so light, so it implies things and gives hints at things that allow the people in the group to build it out and build out more. It's probably got the most third party content for any system. Like last time I saw there were like I want to say 1,500 entries in the Ex Libris Morkborg, which is the website that tracks all the things that people have created, from digital PDFs to online generators to printed materials. They're huge. And it hasn't been that long that they've been out.
Oh wow! Yeah, I had no idea.
They have a fantastic license, which is what allowed us to create Vast Grimm from it. Basically, it's like you can use our rules. You can't copy anything directly, but the core rules you can put into your game, and just don't do anything that's like hate fueled. Basically,
Right.
don't do any racist, transphobic, yeah. So it's a pretty awesome license, and the community that's around it is fantastic. They're very supportive of each other. They help each other out. At Gen Con last year, I put together a panel on third-party Morkborg creators, and so we had a bunch of different people that have created different things talk to folks and give advice and how to make stuff.
I mean, it's cool to see like all the different ideas that have like now like kind of popped off from the original concept of Morkborg. Like you and I were hanging out with a bunch of people that had like the pirate themed idea, and then you've got the
Pirate Borg.
Yeah, Pirate Borg, and then you had the cyberpunk idea. And I think there was there was one more guy, I can't remember, but he had like it was almost like fantasy based, and I was just like, and it's all kind of like the same rules light play style. You could easily combine all the worlds into one and still like have a good time playing.
Yeah, and mix and match bits and pieces. And one of the two creators of Morkborg splintered off, and they created Cyborg, which is a cyberpunk book based off of it, and it's an amazing book. It's beautiful. It's filled with great content.
Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to fix this link.
Yeah, no worries.
Wait, what's wrong with the link?
I don't know. So this is my first time. On a quick side note to anyone watching, I tried to schedule a YouTube video for the first time. It counted down and then didn't go live. And then I think what happened is when I went live with Streamlabs, which is supposed to push both, it just decided to push this stream and not the other stream. So I'll resolve it. Don't worry, I'll figure it out. I'm still learning how to do.
I'm seeing this in there.
Yeah, so what you're seeing is the push coming from Streamlabs right now. But what never went live was if you go to my channel, there's two. You see, it says live now. There's two live screens, and
gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, and one of them's just this janky hold screen, I guess. Whatever. I don't know what's happening, but I shared the actual link everywhere, so hopefully people jump in and watch. I shared it in the post you shared too, so. I don't know, man. I'll figure it out. Let's see. What else? Let me look at my questions here. Go ahead.
Brian, is you the artist on all of this, or was it someone else?
So in the core rulebook, there was myself. I used some of Alan's art. I used some of David Laraka's art. Ross Brandt, who co-created it with me, did some of the art. There were a couple other spot illustrations and bits and pieces from a couple other friends that were in there. For the 3 new books that are coming out, almost all of it is a mashup of some of my art, some stock photography, graphic design skills, and all of that. But I've done pretty much all of the layout and almost all of the writing of these 3 new books as well. Some of it is like the spaceships. A lot of the spaceships, I got permission from the guys that make these toys called Snapships to use their pieces.
I was wondering.
Uh-huh. And then I kit bashed on top of them and like glued other bits and pieces on them and painted them up. But I checked with them first and was like, "Hey, here's some things that I'm making. Is it okay if I put them in a RPG book that I'm working on?"
I mean, they
I was looking at that spaceship. I was like, God, I swear I've seen that before. That looks like a model I've seen.
So you've seen pieces from it, totally. And
Yeah.
then so I just take pieces and I make my own stuff out of it and then add to it. And
I mean, you bought like, so when we were at PAX,
I gotta ask, yeah, how is that toy system? It looked really intriguing to me. I just never
I love it.
picked it up.
I love it. I got a couple kits here I can send you if you want one, Andrew. I'm just sitting on like 6 of them.
They're great, and if you have, like, I don't have a 3D printer, but if I did, there's lots of STL files that you can download and add to them and stuff like that.
Really?
And yeah, and they've also got a board game coming out that our friend Josh did the design the game itself called Snapship Tactics, which is like a spaceship skirmish game where you get to customize your ships and add different parts, and like when you add the parts, you get a different card that adds actual mechanics to your ship. So.
Oh, nice! It's like more involved X-wing miniatures.
Yeah. I mean, the guy that did that is the guy that wrote the Star Trek version of that game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah, Josh knows his spaceship combat.
Yeah.
I
mean, the first time so it was a Snapships thing. The first time I saw that was Gen Con, not last year, but the year before.
Or was it 3 years ago? Or was it 2 years ago? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was either 2 years ago or right before the one before the pandemic. But either way, like they did so well selling their Snapships. I remember they just broke all their record numbers, and they had like piles of them still sitting there. And they did so well, instead of like boxing everything up and shipping it to the next show, they just gave it away. So they were like,
oh,
I remember people from the show came to my booth and they're like, "Hey, do you want some free Snapships?" I'm like, "I don't know what those are." And they walked me over to the booth and they were like, "Take as many as you want." And that's why I'm sitting on a bunch of kits, because I was like, "I'll take this, and this. Let's go."
And that's how I got hooked, right? I got a taste of it.
Yeah, and I remember I messaged you. I'm like, "These dudes are giving away free ships over here. Like, get over here right now." And like Brian and I just walked, like we had like stacks. I mean, it was like, I was like, "Really? These are free?" And they were like, "Yeah, man. It cost them more money to ship it to wherever they had to take." Yeah, versus just giving it away.
But at PAX U, I dropped a lot, or a fair amount, because I bought. I mean,
you made a good deal with them. Like you told them exactly what you're gonna do with it, and I think they got really interested in the fact you were using their product to make these cool ships inside of your game set. Brian, like, if anyone ever meets Brian, you guys all think that I'm a fast talker and I know how to make deals. Brian can run circles around me.
It's not. Well, no, it's not. It's not that. It shows I'm good at making friends.
Yeah, he's just. I mean, that's the same.
It's not about making deals. It's about making friends. And that's,
so everyone's always, people always give me props for that angle, but I'm like, you guys haven't seen Brian in action. There's like a level of like, because I have a line, right, where I'm just like, nah, I'm done. Like, I'm not gonna go that extra mile, because I'm like, I might see a business opportunity, and then I will see it. I'm like, okay, I guess we're just friends, right? Which is fine, like it doesn't always have to be about business, but you've got a cool way of like, I'm not saying you're trying to work a business angle. I just mean you're a really good dude who's really good to everyone else too. Like
and then if business comes from it later, that's cool.
Yeah,
but
people remember Brian, right? People don't remember to like Andrew, if you and I were hanging out with these people, I don't think they remember us in a year, but then they're all thinking about Brian still.
They'll remember Brian, yeah.
They'll remember Brian still. They're just still because he's like he does, like, I don't really push. Like, I'll be at dinner, I don't really talk about Ancient One stuff, right? I might if somebody asks me, right? But it's not like the forefront of what I want to talk about. But you got a way of like talking about your product, which is like everyone's interest. Like, we went to that dinner, we went and got a dim sum, remember? Like,
right, yep.
And in Given, we were with dinner with those dudes who did Pirate Borg too. And the whole time you're thinking, we're not gonna talk business, right? We're gonna sit here and eat dim sum and talk about like random shit. But we just dove right into like Vast Grimm stuff, and I was like, this is cool, and
some of those folks have played with me online, like Doug, who was there who runs the Free League booths at shows. He's played the Mork board game that I've done on his channel and stuff, and so we all game together, so it's natural to talk about RPG stuff.
I mean, it's cool to also like through Brian, I've become friends with all these game developers and other artists and stuff like that. And it's kind of nice to like. It's cool because you can talk to them about ideas and you can see that they've been in the industry so long that they'll tell you like if something won't work, kind of, like.
Yep.
Like, I had a couple good conversations at dinner where the guy was like, "Here's let me fill you in why that might not work," and I'm just like, "Oh, that makes sense," and it's very
It's also a
interesting.
different mindset than like the artist alley, just because it's a different approach to conventions and things like that than a lot of
Sure.
coming from the artist section and coming from the
Yes.
vendor section. It's kind of like there's definitely different paths that most people have experienced in their as they've gone through things.
I mean, I also feel like with these individuals I met specifically on the gaming side, they don't have that wanting as this is competition.
Oh
Versus,
God, no. Yeah.
I see a little bit of that among artists sometimes, and where I'm just like, guys, like, whenever someone's like, "How you doing? What's your numbers? What's your numbers?" to me, I'm just like, it doesn't matter. Like, I have my own numbers in my head that I'm trying to beat. I have my own like goals that I've set for the shows. One of them being, please don't come back with all these play mats, or giant metal that I lug around, right? Like
Right.
I hate hauling stuff around, but like you don't get that. Like every single one person I met at PAX, you didn't get a single vibe from them where they're just like, I'm doing this. I'm kind of doing the same thing you're doing, but I'm doing it better. Like
No.
it wasn't there.
No, we're all in it together, and we all should be doing stuff to help each other because at the end of the day, most of us are smaller indie RPG publishers. We're not like one of the big 2 or 3 larger entities in the industry. So getting other people to play different games is just going to make more exposure for everybody else.
Yeah.
If I play this game, that means I'm probably more likely to play another game and another game if I'm willing to experiment and try other small games.
Yeah. Rising tide and all that.
Exactly.
For all books.
Yeah, exactly.
So I got a question.
Sure.
Do the 3 books in the expansion like add to the Vast Grimm game?
So there's 3, and so the core book is a much larger book. These are all going to be 48-page books, and they're very different in what they do. One, Blood Altered, is basically a series of adventures that can be thrown together as one long campaign, or they can just be little bits and pieces. They're set on this small planetoid where the ancient evil was unleashed 663 years ago, which made all the 6 religious zealots at the time become infected with parasites. And the universe is coming to a horrible end. These parasites have grown inside of people. People have become what's now known as the Grimm. Some of the people that have become infected, the worms growing inside of them have got bigger, burst out of them. There's some worms large enough to eat planets. So those are a series of adventures taking place on that planet where there's still people that they believe the Grimm and they are what's supposed to happen. They want the universe to end. So it's going and adventuring with these weird, crazy cultists, basically. And that has some new subclasses and new monsters and things like that. Then we have the Space Raiders book, which expands with new, basically space pirates, with new factions, new ways to play space pirates. And it's got a hex crawl adventure in the back, which kind of it shows ways to make the universe, break it out into different sections so that different areas are controlled by different factions of space raiders. So it can be like at your table, this faction may control this area, but at somebody else's table, they may control a different area of the universe.
That's cool. I didn't know that part of
it.
I try and make almost all the stuff that we make, we try and have enough variable in it so that if you play the same adventure 3 times in a row, it's never going to be the same experience. There's different tables and things like that make it so either the hooks are different, the creatures, all the things, there's certain key elements that are similar, but everybody can have a very different experience because I don't want to run the same thing over and over again. Especially like at a convention, I want it to feel different, and the players bring a lot to that with how they play.
Right.
And then the Space Cruisers book is I was afraid to tackle space combat and that in the core book because like there's so many people that are really into that. And then I realized that it needed to be rules light. It needed to be simpler. It needed to be like the combat system in Vast Grimm, which is like the one in Morkborg. And so I adopted that philosophy, and it was so much easier. So in the Space Cruisers book, there's ship creation, which is very similar to character creation in the core book. You can do it with random rolls by rolling up the type of the class of ship, then the individual ship, and then what it has. And it has space combat in there. And then there's a few locations in there as well that aren't in the core book, like kind of like a couple of like gas and sip places, or like junker stations to go and be able to salvage items if your starship's breaking down.
Oh, that's all a cool idea. Yeah, this I think the spaceship battles was one of the harder things to design when I was working on the Asian ones. So
I was going to say, like with the spaceship one, were you originally doing like a heavier rule set then before you decided to step back and take a closer approach to how more pork was, or?
I just didn't include space combat in the core rule book. It was like, just like
I meant like once you came around to it, or like was there ever an iteration where it was more complex and then you kind of realized like, oh wait, I just need to strip it down. It doesn't need to be this rule heavy.
No, there wasn't, because I'm not a rules heavy person. So I had basically in my head, I was like, we have an open license. I'll just put it out there. Somebody else can make space combat rules, and then if I like them, I'll use them.
Right.
And so that was kind of how my thought process. And really, most of the games that I've run, even though we've done stuff in flying from point A to point B, most of it's been things where it's once you're at a location, once you're at a derelict spaceship, or you're on this planet or whatever. So no, I never got into crunchier rules just because I don't want to write that. Like that's just not me. So yeah, so and part of it was I read the Pirate Borg rules for naval combat, and I saw how Luke did that in a way that I could do something similar with the spaceship ones, and have it work in a similar fashion, but change it up a bit. Like I made different stats for the spaceship versus character sheet. So there's a spaceship character sheet essentially, and then different stats affect different things, and how fast you can fly, and how well you can turn, and things like that. How all the stuff, how many slots you have that can be modded with a giant buzzsaw that's attached to the front of your ship, or some, just it's very gonzo, like over the top weird science fiction. It's really like for me it's more like weird gross horror, like cheesy, than it is like it's just like real like.
It feels like you're playing a giant B flick.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Like every session of Vast Grimm I've played has been very like, you don't really have to. It's not a serious game, right? Like it's if you make it
you're serious, gonna die. Well, there's a huge chance you're gonna die, but
there's a huge chance you're gonna die.
I mean, there's giant worms and stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, like, I went into it like, when you play like I'm used to playing D&D, right? So when you play D&D, there's depends on your group really, but you can have the serious group, you have the somewhat serious fun group, and then you have like the wild group. Like Andrew and I in our Spelljammer campaign, we're just a wild bunch. Like we just do the craziest things. But in D&D, you're trying not to die. Like But in Vast Grimm, it's kind of like you do stuff like when I played with you at GaryCon last year, and that one dude got really close to the airlock, and I was just like, I'm just gonna kick him out the airlock, because he was just like. He was just wilding the whole time we were on that ship, so I kicked him out of the airlock. But that is something you do in that game set. Everybody was like, nobody at the table was surprised that I did it. I was, because I'm like, I guess this is what I'm doing.
One of the things is, I mean, we've got our online character generator, so you click a button and you have a character, or you click it and obliterate and you have a new character. So there's something to be said about not being super invested in the character creation process. And you have this character, you read over, right? Yeah. And you read stuff, and it's funny, and it's weird, and it's like, you know what? The universe is ending. I don't give a shit. I'm going, and I'm just doing whatever that seems to fit my character. So people tend to go a little. They tend to take more risks than they probably would with other RPGs or characters that they may have been more invested in. But then in longer form games, people play their characters like that, and then they become attached to them. Like, because I've run ongoing Vast Grimm games where they played it that way, and then they're getting more attached, and then they're starting to get a little more reserved because they want to keep this character around longer.
Right. which is problematic for Vast Grimm because it's
I say,
Yeah.
do the games tend to be shorter sessions, or do they tend to be longer sessions? Have you found?
So I guess it really depends on
Because
how
of
you.
that nature.
For me, like most of the online games I've run are about 2 or 3 hours. But I think that's also because of, for me, that's more the online. That's about how long I think a lot of people's attention spans are while dealing with an in screen on screen. If we were sitting down at a
Yeah.
table, like at the table together, 4, 5, 6 hours, if we had it, and we were just a bunch of friends hanging out, I think that's probably how I would play it more if I was doing more in-person sorts of games.
But that's still like a single game session. Like it's not going to be like split over 2 or 3 game sessions or anything like that.
Oh yeah. I've had lots that were ongoing where we did like
Oh,
3 or 4 episodes. Um, at the beginning of each day, you roll a die to see if a torment has occurred, which is basically these prophecies. And if you get a 1 on that die, then a prophecy's occurred. And if 7 of these torments have happened, then the universe is over. The Grimm have taken over, the worms have won, and it's just all over. So there is the impending doom and like the ticking clock of that. Like the group can decide at the beginning of the campaign what die they want to use. But then if a torment occurs on that die, like if you start with the D20 and you roll a 1 and a torment occurs, then you then move down to the D12 and continue moving down until you get to a D2, and that's where it's at until all the torments have come out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the
wow.
session we played at when I played the first session with him at GaryCon, like we rolled it. It was ending in a day, and I was like, all right, that just means that just tells you can be extra wild, right? Because you're like,
Right.
we're gonna be dead at the end of today.
It just means that the Grimm have taken over more of the universe. There's very little
Yeah.
left of humanity. But there is a glimmer of hope. We have this thing called the Gate of Infinite Stars, which is this rumored thing that's being built by engineers and scientists to escape this universe and get into another one. So, unlike like Morkborg, there's no like real glimmer of hope. They have the calendar of Necrobural that counts down, and like that's when the end happens. And in their thing, it says once you reach that, burn the book. It's over. But with ours, we at least have a means to get people out. But whether or not the Grimm and the worms follow you into the next universe, that's how I'd probably run it if I was.
It's like
people got out.
It's like Tales from the Dark. It's a Twilight Zone episode. Like you're like, I made it,
Yep.
and they just follow you in still. Real quick side note: anyone watching, feel free to ask questions. I will read them if you post them.
I will not, because I cannot see them. One other thing that I'm digging on the campaign is our patch program.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are not all on the campaign, but these are all the patches I currently have. So I sewed them onto my bag the other weekend.
I was gonna show off I think you can get this in the Kickstarter too. This Vast Grimm DM screen. It's probably one of the coolest DM screens I own. It's.
You say that because it's got one of your ships on it.
It definitely has my ship on it right there, dead center, baby.
Yep.
But it's got like like when you get like some DM screens nowadays. I'm going to use D&D as an example again. Like the rules or all the stuff in the back is usually specifically designed for the campaign you're running, unless you have like an old school DM screen or a specific one. This thing's you can use in all your campaigns, which I think is kind of cool.
Lots of random tables, lots of basic rules, easy use.
It's super small, easy to transport. And that's the other thing. Like I'm hard pressed to go small on my books, but Brian's like, here, I'll show you regular.
It's a
D&D book,
6 by 8.5.
So it's really easy to travel with. It's kind of nice. I don't know. It took me a minute to get used to Vast Grimm, but I think it's fun once you it's fun if you embrace the chaos.
Yes,
that is the game. Like it's not. It won't be fun if you're too serious about your gameplay. Is what I'm realizing, which that applies to a lot of games, but it's kind of specific to this one. I think it's cool. So I see you're at your. I was looking at your Kickstarter earlier.
We broke 1,700 backers this evening.
Yeah,
which is awesome.
1,700 backers. You're at 144,000, which is amazing. With 3 days to go, you got some stretch goals still, huh?
I've got a lot of stretch goals. I've got some that we haven't even haven't been disclosed on the page yet. But yeah, I've got.
Really?
Usually the last 48 hours, you usually Kickstarter pushes out there, hey, you're following the project. You want to back it now? So we've got a lot of stuff that could unlock a lot of really cool things that I think will just extra awesome and make some of the higher pledge levels add even more value to them.
So, are you going to share the stretch goals that are not shown before Friday closes it out, or are you going to keep
Like,
this?
am I going to share it now on the stream?
No, no, no. You don't have to share on the stream if you don't want to.
I mean, I can. We sent it out in the email blast, in the Infinite Black email blast today.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
You can.
I just need to pull it up so I don't
show us all your secrets.
just so I make sure I'm saying the right stuff, because you look at so many things and you're like, it's been a kind of busy, crazy 3 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. You
during the process of this.
So I keep telling people. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So how close would you say you are to the next stretch goal then?
So the next stretch goal is at 150,000, where I'm going to write another side quest adventure that's not in the books, that goes along with my friend Chris is doing a soundtrack for the Blood Altered book. Some of his samples of his music are on not the latest update, but the one before that, because he's been working on some music projects for another Vast Grimm release that we have coming out in April. That will be awesome once it's out. But since we've already kind of been working together on things like that, we're like, David was like, why don't we see if he'd be interested in doing some music for the campaign as one of the stretch goals. So because that came out, now I wanted to go ahead and do an extra adventure to kind of go with that.
Yeah.
So that's at the 150. At the 160 mark, we are going to have foil cards, a deck of 20 cards, which are the tributes. Tributes are essentially the magic in Vast Grimm. So so there'll be 10 encrypted tributes, 10 hack tributes, and basically you can roll a die to get these. Like those are in the book. 20, those are in the book, but you can also just shuffle these up and draw them that way if you'd prefer to have like a physical item at the table, or like somebody randomly finds a tribute, you can pass that to them. So that's the 60,000 mark. And then let's see, can I even find the email blast? God. Hang on. So then we still have a lot coming up. Oh, here we go. Like some of the other stretch goals are there's going to be a digital adventure generator, where basically like the character generator, click a button, it'll give you adventure hooks, different things that you could easily use to feed the ideas of an adventure that you run. We've got another deck in the in line for another additional deck, digital NPC generator, digital planet generator, and then like a printed star map.
That's cool.
If things hustle over the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the last days where it really like helps you gonna cook ahead. That's just how some of this stuff works normally. But yeah, like what Brian's going through right now with like every day he's just dealing with the Kickstarter. I've been trying to tell people who want to, like, some people get it. When you're running a Kickstarter, that's all you're gonna live, breathe.
I mean, you're gonna do a little bit of other stuff, especially in the middle, but the beginning and the end, you're making graphics, you're promoting stuff, you're planning, you're rethinking things, because you have to adjust and shift, and you have to be flexible. Like, I don't ever go into a Kickstarter with like, here's 10 stretch goals and everybody here, come check them out, because you never know how day one's going to go. Right. If you put something that's way too far out of reach, the psychology of it, people that are seeing it, they're going to be like, man, they're never going to reach that goal. Why should I even bother? Because I want everything now that I've seen it. Right. Or if you put everything out and you don't anticipate how successful it's going to be, and then you blow through it, then it's like, oh gosh, now what do I do now? So trying to measure and gauge that as you go. And then, if it does better than you expect, then having to come up with things that aren't going to financially sink you along the way too, because you can't add too much that's going to do so much scope creep in the production side that it's going to be too much to make it worthwhile. You want to figure out what's going to be valuable for the backers, and also be good for the business side too.
Yeah, I learned that lesson with the first book, where I was like, I should have designed it so only things that ship or whatever fits in the book or in the box for the book. And then at some point, I think it was my pledge manager convinced me to put my playmats and stuff in there too. And I should have said no, but in my head I was
But that's like a whole separate box, isn't it?
Exactly. Right. So like what ended up happening was I had to like ship out all this I had to ship a book in one box with all the cool stuff that came with the Kickstarter, and then I had to ship a separate playmat. What I realized with my warehouse was we can with playmats you can kind of like fold them into forts and put them in an envelope and ship them, and they'll just bounce back. But initially I was like, oh shit, tubes are expensive. This is going to get expensive really fast.
It's also a weird size, and
it's a weird size. So as a rule of thumb, like, you know, like make it so it all fits in one box, and if it doesn't, don't put it in the Kickstarter, because you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. I had like all the weights measured out for every product. I had the weights measured out with all the products in the box, and then I did the dumb thing of putting the playmats and stuff in there. I did the playmats and I did the metal like a dumbass. You know, there
was one Kickstarter I backed years ago that ran into that exact same issue. It's for I forget the artist's name, Jun something. He was making these anatomical models of like big cats at the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the start. Like I think he does like a whole range of like different animals, humans, and stuff nowadays. Like they're all anatomical models. But yeah, his thing was like, you know, you got the model. I'll actually get it real quick. You got like this thing in the mail, right? It also came though with a anatomy poster, and the anatomy poster is like huge. I think it's like 18 by 24. So I don't know if he. I think it's like, I think it was that case. Like I don't think he quite anticipated it initially, then, because like I distinctly remember like the whole thing where he was like, well, like if you guys don't want it like messed up, I have to send it out in a tube, and that's going to be at a later date. I can't give an exact specification. But then some people were like irate about that. So then he was like, well, if I ship it in the box, I got to fold it. So just letting you know it's going to get folded. And then people are mad about that. He was like stuck in like a damned if you do.
What he should have done was not say anything and shipped them folded.
Probably, yeah. He gave
even though that's not how you want your product to show up.
No. Yeah, and like what he did in the end, especially because if I remember right, when they finally went out, because of like production delays, like we all know that, like shit happens, stuff gets delayed. It got delayed of I think like a year longer than he anticipated, because there was a lot of like production issues in terms of translating it over. This was around the time when more companies were starting to use 3D printing as part of their prototyping processes, but it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. So I think this was like, I think 10-ish years ago or whatever. So his models he made in ZBrush, and then he had to get them like 3D printed to get the prototypes out, and then sent to a factory in China to get the resin casts made and all that, yada, yada, yada. It went through like all of that. And because of that, there's like this huge delay. I think they were trying to get like a quality control going on where the prototypes initially were too visible, like print lines and everything that they were trying to sort out. So yeah, by the time he got to the poster where he was like, oh yeah, by the way, the poster, here's the issue with that. There was a lot of backers I remember kind of just being fed up, who were like, I just want the fucking model. Like, can I just get the model, please? And he was like, well, here's the deal. If you don't care about how it looks, I'll send the thing folded in with the model. If you really care about it, I'll send it to you rolled, but it's going to be later after I get everything else out of the way.
Right.
Yep.
Created his own.
Yeah, I understand.
Problems.
Like, yeah, after your whole experience, that's an absolute horrible way to go. Just get everything in one box.
And try and plan the pieces so that they all kind of fit into that right shape.
Yeah, it's like I have a friend who did, I guess it would be industrial design is what her degree is in, and her job is to design cell phones, like so everything fits. Like if you pry open your cell phone, the chips, the motherboard, I don't know if it's called a motherboard in a cell phone, but all the little parts have to fit a specific way so they can close it. And her job was to design that layout. And I was thinking about those kind of things when I'm shipping all these products. Because like my book was shipped, everyone got this. It was shipped a specific way for everybody. You know, like the warehouse packaged a specific way, so it closed right. and didn't break when it was traveling because there were pins and stuff in there too, right? Like,
So yeah, so about that, like you both have experience with this. Is like, do you plan when you're figuring out your shipping box and everything with this? Do you factor in like, okay, this is how it's going to be with stretch goals, or do you just say like, here's the box that the thing is being shipped into. Now I have to figure out how to get the stretch goals to fit in that, or do you kind of like safe and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room to be like, okay, if I have some stretch goals, I can still fit them into this box like in a Tetris style, however I need to.
So like with this campaign, we're not worrying about shipping until we're in backer kit. So I've never handled shipping really on the Kickstarter side, so I always think about it after the fact. So then you kind of look and see what your stretch goals have been. You can plan for what the shipping costs are going to be at the different pledge levels at that point. Figure out the different size boxes that you're going to need.
Right.
I try,
so you're not caught out. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like with this in particular, I'm trying for all of the Vast Grimm stuff moving forward to be the same size. Like the books are the same size. The character sheet tear pads that were a stretch goal that unlocked are going to be the same size as the book because I want everything to look right if you put them all on a shelf together. I want it to look like it's a family of products. So, I mean, patches are a weird one. They're not the same, but they're basically flat. But future products that we put out, I want it to all kind of have that same thing. And then you get kind of a universal box anyway, right? You just have a variable depth on it.
And it makes sense for like collectors, like
right.
They want that. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I look at my shelf of gaming stuff and I'm like, yeah, I want it to all look right together.
Yeah, all my stuff's right there and it all lines up a specific way. So that's how you get to what you need to get to.
I've got certain comic books that like it's same IP, but like, you know, different parts of it or whatever. And for some reason, like even if it's like different editions, like, you know, your deluxe edition versus whatever. And yeah, it's like one of the weird like pet peeves I had that like just drives me up the wall where it's like, this shit does not make any sense. What the hell's going on?
That's just like down several like the Hellboy anthologies. It's like, why aren't they the same size as a trade paperback?
Yeah.
Like,
one thing that always this actually goes to like expands into board games for myself as well. Is like one thing that always really pisses me off is when you get a board game and they have some expansions out and they either within the core board game itself or just in a failure of expansion things, they fail to provide a way to be like, okay, you have your board game, you have the main board game, the base one, and you have your expansions. Here's like an addition or an add-on thing, or we designed the packaging so the base board game can hold all the expansion shit in the same box. So you don't have to hold like 3 or 4 boxes in addition to the main one. And
so the lid's not like this high off of it once you get the Kickstarter exclusive bonus things that aren't in the regular one. Yeah.
That's my Cosmic Encounter game. Like I love that game. I have like I think like 3 expansions for it. I think it only made 3. But yeah, it's a fucking mess, that box. I have just everything jammed in there. The box is like slightly like this kind of mode in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of those you gotta get this for a lot of those board games and stuff, you gotta get the specialty you know, the company that originally did it doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, but like they have
there's like third party products that usually kind of
there was a company with us at PAX that made it with like not the wood designs, but they made it with like the heavy cardboard. I don't know if you saw them, Brian. They were
like,
down the
like the laser cut stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they would like so if you like in the case of your, I'll try to figure out what their name was called because Danny introduced me to them. But like basically like you would say, oh, I own King of Tokyo. I need something designed to fit in the box, and they would like laser cut it and put it in there. And it wasn't like wood. It was like I think it was just like a heavy stock board. So it's cheaper to produce, basically, is my point.
Yeah.
And it'd be great if you can do something like that for your Kickstarter and put it in a box and then ship it out. So you can be like, check it out. The box is also your, you know, collector's item, but it's just going to get dinged up on its way out the door. So, you know, I've gotten a lot of Kickstarters where it seems like they just kind of threw everything in the box and shipped it out. And you're just like, cool. Like, you didn't care enough to...
They're just whipping through it, man.
They're just like, I gotta get this out the door. I'm done. Now I've also had like the other thing I learned from mine was like I try to fancy up my packaging. Like any one of you guys that got the full set from me got like the stuffing with the pink packaging and all like the pinks, more pinks, right?
Yep.
And I had a couple people who were like, "This is nice and all, but you didn't have to go." It was extra money, is what it was. And
Sure.
for my first Kickstarter, super excited to do that. Probably won't go so wild with it on the second one because it's like it looks good, but at the end of the day, you're just throwing all that stuff away.
True, but part of it's kind of like that Apple mentality of the opening
Yes.
experience, and
Well, I want to give that experience. I want it
first
to be an
experience
experience. I get what you're saying. And if I'm going to do that, I want it to be something you can actually hold on to.
Sure. Yep. Totally.
Versus pink stuffing that it's kindling.
Yep.
So let's see.
Any questions in the chat?
No, I had a bunch of people watching and a bunch of people leaving, and I don't know if it's being thrown off by the live thing is still there, which is weird to me. So, and I'm too scared to delete the one on YouTube because I don't know if it's gonna delete us. like I want to get through this, and then it'll say because the link I just shared on your Facebook and Twitter earlier is definitely live. So,
YouTube is still live as well. So I mean, we're good.
You might want to share the updated link, Brian, in your Discord.
I deleted the original one because it was right below the one that I posted earlier, which is the one straight to your YouTube channel. So
okay, I mean, I posted it in all the channels too. So yeah, people who are watching aren't asking questions. Even I told them they could. So what are we gonna do?
Cool, right on.
Right on there.
I've given all the answers.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes it's just you're saying everything they want to hear, and sometimes they just not as chatty. There's about.
Yep.
I mean, Streamlabs is telling me there's about 10 people watching, but no one's asking questions. So,
cool.
Calling you guys out, ask some questions. Also, well, let's talk about your studio real quick. I noticed you painted it very pink, so it's very on brand.
I've got two pink walls, 2 gray walls.
Yeah, I haven't.
Like
I have
not got a gray wall here and a gray wall
any
here.
of my stuff pink. Everyone always asks me if I want to paint the walls purples and pinks, and I was like, no, because I would go bananas staring at purples and pinks.
See, I stare at gray most of the time. I only see the pink.
Do an accent wall. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I could do maybe that wall over there if I really want in the summertime, but I'm just not. By the way, I need to show this off because I cleaned. It's very nice. Ooh, look.
Ooh, fancy.
There you go.
I know everyone's used to seeing chaos on my floor. I'm very proud of that. It took me about an hour.
One of my friends in college, he had a roommate that painted his whole room this, and this is not going to mean anything to you guys, but like University of Florida blue, which is like on a Pantone, it's like $285. It's like this really rich dark blue.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like, wow, you painted this whole room this color.
It's going to take a lot to paint over that.
Oh yeah. It's just like, just looking at it, it's like it somehow like sucks in light while at the same time just vibrating your eyes constantly because it's this oversaturated color.
Yeah, you're like, so that's the thing. Like Brian's smart; he put it on the wall behind him, so he never really has to stare at it, right?
Right.
You just put it on an area that you don't recognize.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it. Like I said, I would probably do it on the side wall if I was going to do it, or if I did it on this back wall, I would be staring at it all the time. I can look. I'm on these video calls. I would just be looking at it, and it would drive me bananas. Ideally, what I wanted to do when I first got this set up was I wanted to paint kind of like Cosmos or something back there, like get some wallpaper and stuff. But you know how it is, man.
You get in and you've got stuff all over the place.
Yeah, right? You get in. I put up all these paintings, and I was just like, I ain't got time for this. Any free time I have is spent like playing D&D with you guys or something.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed when I can get a game in with you guys during the week.
I still have a half painted kitchen that I need to finish up, but I just need to go out and get more paint. That's really all it.
Bro, like I spent, so we have, since we have the second kid on the way, I've been spending all my time just prepping the house. And yesterday I ran around and I had to secure everything to the walls because with my daughter, who's 4, I don't have to worry about it. She doesn't really climb on.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got time.
A new Rugrat soon. Yeah, you've got time, dude. Like they're a lump for a while.
Yeah,
I got it done, man. I got it done. So I appreciate your vote of confidence on the timing, but I cooked through it. I got it all. There was a minute where I was about to sit on the couch, and I was talking to Tawny, and she was like, "Man, if you sit on that couch, you're gonna fall asleep."
Yep.
And then I was just like, "Yeah," and I was like, "I should just keep going." So I just like power. You know, like when you get to that limit, where you're just like, "I'm just gonna power through it." And then I took like I think around 9 o'clock at night, I took like a 20-minute nap, and then I just worked till like 2 in the morning and got all the other stuff done. Because I still got shows. It's just like, Andrew, are you doing MegaCon?
No,
Okay.
if I'm gonna go, I'm just attending it. I'm not gonna
Okay.
table this year.
Like Brian, I want to. What I want to do for next year is, I want to be Brian. I want to launch a couple Kickstarters and then do a few shows and then not stress the shows are shows give me there's stress involved in doing shows. And I keep telling people the same thing I'm gonna say to you guys again, which is shows are not sustainable. At some point, they're gonna go away. So it's you need to set up plans for that now, because they're not gonna go away like next year. They're not gonna go away like in 2 years. They're eventually just gonna dwindle down to the big shows, like Gen Cons, Dragon Con, San Diego Comic Con. Those shows aren't gonna go away for a long time, if ever, because they're so big.
I think they're just gonna become more niche, and there's gonna be smaller cons that are like focused on more specific things.
I mean, we might have a Vast Grimm Con. And then we did Wormfest.
Yep.
I was gonna say you also got like age factor in where it's like it's also not sustainable on a personal level. Like you just eventually there's enough like personal obligations that you don't have time to set aside to be able to like do back-to-back shows.
Well, it's like
it's
like a limit of like
you're like, man, I don't want to do this shit anymore.
Well, it's like a lot of the younger artists that we know too want to get into shows, and I'm just like, you can do shows, but what you should do is focus on building your fan base, focus on building your mailing list, because these are all going to come into play when you're like my age and you're just like, I don't want to do this shit no more.
But a lot of that comes from shows. Like it all feeds into it. Like you need the shows to build the fan base, to build the audience.
Yeah. And I said that whole ass statement like I'm an old man, and I'm not. But like,
are you sure?
I can outbench you. I'm sure of it. I'm just tired now. Brian has limitless energy. I have no, like, you and I, when we were at GaryCon, let me put it this way, we were at GaryCon, and I think it was the last night we were there. Him and I made it back to the Airbnb. We've been going all day. We met with people, we worked some deals, he ran some games, and then we get back, and I was like, oh, thank God we're back at the house. And Brian's like, we really should go back out and finish networking. Like, we really should go grab a couple of drinks and go networking. And I was just like, your call, man. I'll do whatever he was driving, right? So I'm like, you drive, I'll go. Like, I will find that. You always find that extra energy. And, it was cool because we met people who, like, worked for Wizards of the Coast. We met people we met the people who, like, designed 5e, So, like, it was kind of...
if you're going to a show to network, if that's part of it, you're only going to be there for that show. Go and do it, and then take a nap afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, we slept hard when we got back, but like, we do that, like, that's how we are at these shows, and that's us kind of trying to, that will take its own toll eventually. So, like, your goal is to build a mail, like, let me put it this way, the bulkhead of my backers when I launched my Kickstarter didn't come from Instagram or Twitter or, like, hawking at Gen Con and Dragon Con. It came from my mailing list, from the people that signed up to the mailing list, and and that came from doing the big shows, building the mailing list. And when the time came, I shot out an email to... Now, I don't have as many followers as Brian. I'm not going to name your count. But, the people that... I only needed... In my head, I was like, I need, 200 people to back it, to fund. And I got... That, it took time because it was my first Kickstarter. So I'm hoping the next one goes faster. But, the mailing list was the bulk. And then it came down to, like, I think it was mailing list, Twitter, and then Instagram. In that order. And Facebook can go fuck itself.
The Facebook marketing, it definitely has its place, and it can really do a lot for the campaign if you can do it.
So I learned from David, if you know how to run the Facebook marketing, you can do really well there. So I might give it another chance, but back to my original point, which is just, I feel like shows are they know. I feel like they know younger artists need them, so they kind of get you to get in there and spend your money and get a table. I've seen a lot of these artists walk away like, I didn't do really well. I'm like, okay, well, let's rethink this, rethink your budget, and let's figure out what you can do and what you can't do. Like, don't do shows just because you see like someone like myself or Brian or somebody else at shows doing well, because my success might not be your success, right? I feel like I've kind of fallen backwards into a fan base that I didn't expect, which is, thank God, because I don't know what else to do. Like, this is all I know how to do. But also, like, I'm not going to keep doing shows and killing myself. I want to do what you're doing. I want to do, like, not necessarily Kickstarters, but I'd love to just make sales with products that I come up with online, right? And then show up.
Making sales on products is harder until you have a large freaking audience and a large following. It's hard to do that. Like, so all my personal stuff, like all my personal, like the creature curation stuff that I had before I became part of Infinite Black, like I don't make enough money on that stuff on just web sales to account for a whole lot throughout the course of the year, except for like distributor orders and store orders and stuff like that. But things like that, you need shows or you need Kickstarters to help fund that sort of thing.
Right. So that's where you have to have a plan where you're like, I'm going to do these shows. I'm going to build this many. Like, obviously, you want to make money. You're not going to shows just to be like, I'm just standing around building a mailing list, right? You got to have a goal.
Being away from the family for that chunk of time. And
that's the other thing,
all that
right? Stuff. Those of us have kids. All of us have children. You're gone for like 5 or 6 days, right? And when they're really young, you're like, it's not. Like, when I was really young, I was like, she's not going to remember that I've been gone for 7 days. But now, like, when I leave, it's super sad because she's
flipping you off, being like, where are you, Dad?
See you later, motherfucker. Yeah. When your kid is attached at your hip most of the time, it's like you kind of miss them after like 2 or 3 days, and only people with children can really understand that, And I've had people tell me, I miss my dog or my cat, and I'm just like, okay, like, I'm not gonna argue with you about your pet. I don't own any pets, But yeah, there's that being away from your family for 5 or 6 days, and then so like I tell these the young artists now, I tell them, like, just plan. Like, if you're in your head, you're like, I need to make $4,000. Let's just start with that, and like, so, okay, what does it take to get to $4,000? A table at the show. You're getting a booth for $1,000. That's a bad idea. Would you want to get into this artist alley, spend $400, get in there with X amount of prints? You got to, for starters, figure out how many prints you have. Some of these artists are like, I only have 6 prints. You should not be at this show.
Right.
Like, and then if you're at a Comic-Con trying to sell originals, and Andrew knows this dance, it's super hard. Because when you're at a Comic-Con, people want comic stuff. Like, even myself.
They want the fan stuff. Yeah.
Like, I got C2E2 coming up at the end of March. And I know for a fact I will not make that much money at it because it's a comic convention. And then I'm over here like, check out Ancient Ones. I got this cool thing. And every X, 3 out of 5 probably, is a person who's like, this is new. I want to check it out.
And then expanding on that, don't be like me and trying to sell original art at a Comic-Con.
Yeah, it just won't fly. It's a hard thing.
It does not fly. I've only sold, I think, items the entire, like, the 3-ish years that I tabled.
I mean, and then, but if you got, like, it depends on the Comic-Con, right? Like, because San Diego Comic-Con, for example, Miles was there with me last year.
I think that could work in a place like that.
He moved a lot of originals there. It was like a slow go, and there's a minute where we were both like, maybe it won't work, and then all of a sudden,
and maybe, and like a place like Dragon Con too works for that, right?
Yes, because Dragon Con's got the art show where people come specifically. The thing is, the beauty of the art show at Dragon Con is people come there looking for specific IPs, and that's one of those shows where you have to decide, what do you want? Like, do you want? Anytime someone says try to do Dragon Con, I say, are you there to make a name for yourself and make a little money, or are you there to make money? Because if you're there to make money, then you need to apply for the vendor hall, because that's where the money's in. If you're there to make a name for yourself, which my first 4 years at Dragon Con was literally working the art show, I made my money back, but I also pushed the hell out of my brand and my IP. And like, people now, when I show up there, people know who I am. Like, they're there looking for me specific, which is kind of a cool feeling.
Yeah, totally.
But I worked to get to that, and I tell I said the same thing, like our friend Jason, who's signed up for Dragon Con. I told him, I said, are you there to make money, or are you there to push your IP and make a little bit of money? And then he said he'd rather be in the art show because he wants to be around his friends, which is fine. I'm not going to talk you out of that. Same thing.
Plus, it's harder to get in as a vendor there if you're not selling stuff. That's not vendor stuff.
But if you have like fan art type stuff, the 4th floor there at the America Smart is perfect.
Oh, and the comic and pop art section.
Yeah, comic and pop art section is perfect. But that's the kind of research you have to either ask somebody about or learn about for specific shows. Like MegaCon, I've never done MegaCon, so I don't know. You know,
I've
It's
done it, but it's been years.
basically just like a generic comic
Pop
convention.
culture
Just
comic, yeah.
yeah, just large. Yeah,
I felt like
it's
most people would. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, if you went to any Informa type convention, like I think Dallas Comic Con or
I
whatever,
did
like
that.
it's all exactly the same.
Yep.
Same company. Like Fan Expo, Dallas Comic Con,
I will
MegaCon, they're all owned
never.
by the same company.
Yeah, I'll never
It's
do
all like
FanX.
people going to get photos of their celebrities to
That's
wear the
actually the
cosplay,
large.
and that's
I mean, I think that's what
it's
safe shows like. Well, so Dragon Con still has some signings and stuff, but it's so big that not
Right.
everybody's going there. But if you go to something like FanX at Dallas or even C2E2, those autographs are like $300. People spend that kind of money, and then they're like, "I don't have any money for your art." It's like, cool. How long did you
And
make
at
that?
least-
act?
well, it's the different audience. Those are not the people that
get
are
it.
there for your art, and they're not the people there.
So, like, yeah,
At
those
least,
are
like,
the kind of things to
for-
think about, right?
At least for Florida too, I know that outside of MegaCon, there's not a whole lot of other conventions in terms of like traffic and all that. Like I did this horror convention, SpookyCon, for one. I only tried it one time in 2019. I didn't even make table. But it was so like poorly organized and stuff and like set up that it was horrible. Like, okay, so like the Artist Alley thing, the way they set it up is like, imagine like, you know, a giant box and, you know, you have your aisles and stuff set up. Then there's the back wall. The back wall has like 2 openings in it. And if you go past there, there's like a whole nother section of Artist Alley. But it's very easy just to mentally, like, as you're mapping it out, be like, oh, that's the back of the wall. So that's the end of the convention. And never go to the back. And I was stuck on that other side of that wall.
Oh, that's not good.
Like,
That
like half that place clear, half of that area cleared out before Sunday because they're like, yeah, we're not making any sales.
We did a show last year. I'm not gonna name it, but they had put up a wall around the artists, suggesting that that's the way to separate the artists. I was in the vendor hall, so
That's such a shitty thing to do, though. Yeah.
Well, what ended up happening day one was all the artists back there were like, nobody knows we're back here because you had to go through like some video game stuff to get to them. So they ended up taking the wall down. Like they didn't even ask permission. They just ripped the damn thing down to the ground.
Oh, good. So the artists themselves actually took it down. Okay.
Well, yeah, they built like
Good
this,
for them.
and it's the same thing that was happening what you're describing. You go through the video game side of it, and then you'd be like, "Oh, there's this wall here. This must be the end." But if you actually walk through the opening, there was an opening there, but you didn't think you can go in. There were artists on the other side of that, and so the wall was gone by like a couple hours after day one, and it was just like, who thought that was a good idea? You know, I don't know what they're gonna do this year, but hopefully they're better about it. You know, and that's the other thing. That's how you like you learn by doing these shows, and then you slowly figure out which ones are best for you, and then you bring it down to like I think I can do 4 shows next year, and I'll still be fine. And there was a year I remember where I did like 19 or 20 shows, and I'll never do that again.
That's just crazy.
Well, I was didn't have a baby at home, and I was very much just dating, and it's just like I was working from home, then I was unemployed, and I didn't get fired because of shows, so don't whatever, but I had the time, so I was just like, all right, let's push our luck. I did stuff like Walker Stalker, which didn't. It was local. It was in Chicago. I didn't, but then sometimes you get lucky at these shows. Like that show, didn't go well for me. I didn't make a lot of money at it. I made table. I made a little extra money, not as much as I wanted. But what I did get out of it is that it's where I met Julia Hearn, who is big in the board game side, and that's how I kind of got used to it. I got to learn more about the board game industry through her. So sometimes things just work out.
There's good takeaways from conventions, even if you don't make money.
Yes, there's always, if you're willing to like look for other things and network, that's so I keep telling people, like, don't go there just to make money. When you do a thing just to make money, people know. And you have a weird vibe about you, and it's just not good. Like, you should want to be there. You should want to talk about your, like, there were several artists at Gen Con last year who just stood at their booths, didn't say anything. I'm like, man, talk about your product. Tell people why you're here. Tell them what you love about your art. Like, why are you standing here? If you're here just to make money,
if you're not engaging with them, they're gonna walk right past you.
Definitely not engaging with you. And it was my cousin who said it to me years ago. He was like, if you do a thing just to make money, people know that. It's a weird vibe you put out, and just seeps right out of you, right? And it's not, you don't even have to say it. People just know it. And it's like, if you're not enjoying your own thing, like I can talk about Ancient Ones all day if somebody wants to, right? Like, because I love my product, just like you can talk about Vast Grimm. And I know Andrew can talk about horror stuff all day. Like if you get him going at dinosaurs, I know this man loves dinosaurs and platypuses.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not gonna talk about them. Like,
No, the platypus was just more confusion over that.
yeah, we're not gonna talk about it because I'm gonna have to drive to Florida and kill you if you keep going. But okay. Well, that being said, we could do a whole episode on shows later. We are a little bit over time. I want to talk once again. Brian's got a Kickstarter. It is still live till Friday. Is it just under Vast Grimm? Let me double check.
If you do a search for Vast Grimm, it's Vast Grimm Into Oblivion.
Yep, Into Oblivion. It comes right up.
Go there, back it now. Get the stuff that's
I just
you
saw
can
the
only
numbers
get as
climb.
stretch goals. Yeah, we've gone up a little bit. We broke the 145 mark while we've been on the show.
I see that.
So yeah, it's going to keep going. The last few days are going to be awesome. We're going to have lots of cool stretch goals to unlock. More people joining our Legion, which means more people playing, which is fantastic.
No, congrats on already being funded. So hopefully you hit your next set of goals. We did have somebody watching, so thanks for the podcast. Yeah, we usually go live on Fridays. This is the first one of the few times we've done it on Tuesdays. If you follow us on YouTube, if you follow me on Twitter or whatever, I'll do my best to be better about scheduling this. Apparently, I broke the schedule today, so whatever. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else you want to plug, Brian? Otherwise, I'll put all the social information down in the YouTube video.
No, just live. Go check out the Kickstarter, and I'll be around on the internets.
Hopefully, you can break 200. That'd be awesome.
That's a big leap from where we are to there in the last 3 days. So,
yeah, man. I mean, you never know.
Right? Never know.
And then you'll have the most of the Vast Grimm stuff at what's your first show of the year? Origins.
First show is Origins outside of Gamma. Yeah. So
okay.
for first consumer people facing show is Origins, Gen Con, Gamehole Con, PAX Unplugged. Yeah. And people can play Vast Grimm at PAX East coming up very soon because there's going to be games run by Gehenna Gaming there.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
There you go. Yeah. And then my first show is coming up next month. It's Kansas Planet Comic Con.
Nice.
We'll see.
When is Planet March?
It's mid-March. I literally have a newborn here, and I can't. Go ahead. What do you got?
I also totally forgot. I will also be at MomoCon in April. It's my first time being a guest at a show.
Guest of honor, right?
Oh,
not a guest of honor, just a guest.
Just a guest. Hey, man, it's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
MomoCon's
I'll be running some Vast Grimm games, hopefully, with some of the other guests there. Maybe
Ancient Ones might be there. Not me specifically. One of my assistants might be there, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I'll go give them shit.
Oh, good. I'll tell them to punch you out as you walk up. But yeah, Planet's in Kansas. I did it for the first time last year. I didn't do too bad, but this year I'm doing it without an assistant because it's just the budget's a little too tight and timing is just throwing everything off. So, but Tawny's there and her husband's gonna be there, so she's offered to cover my bathroom breaks and get me lunch. So
awesome.
Tyler's there too with his son, so I got my bases covered. It's just gonna be long days for me, and people are already like, yeah, but your wife's home with a newborn. I'm like, all right.
Yep.
God, manual labor doesn't count, guys. Just so you know.
Nope.
So, thanks for agreeing. All right, let me take us offline. Our next guest is on March 10th, and it will be
2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now, and it
right?
will,
is that right?
Yes.
Did I actually math that right?
Yeah, you're right. March 10th, Friday. And it'll be Stephanie Cook, who is a writer and editor.
3 weeks from now.
Yeah. She has several books out. I can't remember how we became friends. I found her on Twitter one day and she added me to her Discord. And she's got a whole Discord for artists and writers. But yeah, so that's our next guest. First week of March, I might have somebody scheduled. We'll see. I'm trying to convince Corey Godby to get on, but
nice.
Yep. He decided to rip apart his studio, so he's super backed up. All right, I'm going to take us offline.
Cool.
Thanks for everyone who's watching. Again, I'll try to schedule this better next time. Thanks, Brian, for being on. I know it's
Thanks for having me.
Tuesday night, so